Good evening and welcome to Gaming with Scott presents Behind the Masks, a Southgate media production. In this series, our heroes remove their masks so that you, the listener, can learn more about the player behind the character. We discuss topics of interest and encourage our players to go off the rails and down the rabbit hole. We hope this helps our audience get to know us better. Discussions and insights begin just after this music.
Hey, this is JC with Gaming with Scott. I am here with Rico.
Yo.
And it is my great pleasure to introduce the myth, the legend, the woman who indeed did hump the Book of Nod, Rissi from Damsels of Dorkington.
Hey, everybody. So glad to be here, and I will happily hump any books you bring by.
I like where this is going already.
I know, right?
Well, the Necronomicon has teeth. Ooh.
So scary. So scary. Crazy images.
I did not see that curveball coming.
Nope.
Fantastic.
And you lobbed it up for her, and she knocked it out of the park. All right, so
roll.
you are Rissi with Damsels of Dorkington.
Indeed.
You are one of three with Blythe and Jeff.
One of four. So,
One of
Yes.
four?
yes.
Oh.
So we had, for a long time, if you've seen the movie Spinal Tap, we kind of had a Spinal Tap drummer situation
Yeah.
where our green damsels kept mysteriously dying of anthrax or being blown up in explosions and that kind of thing. But now we have a full-time green damsel. Her name is Amanda, and she's super awesome. She, like me, comes from a background of molecular biosciences.
Yeah.
She's currently a PhD candidate in biology, and I guess hobby-wise, she loves arts and crafts and Minecraft. And also, we play together in a 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons game.
Wow. So you actively you have characters that you've made up. And this makes sense because the Damsels of Dorkington, believe it or not, they're nerd celebrities.
Oh,
But-
you.
But bear in mind that they're legit nerds.
Well,
and
no,
dorks.
Rissi here is actually like a penta-threat. So let's start
yes.
with science.
Science!
So, can you give us a little background? Because it's not discussed in little. It is my understanding that you are so brilliant that you named a gene.
Oh, God. So I actually, that hasn't happened yet. I mapped a gene.
Ooh.
Yes, so... but these things can take a while. Results have to be published. So for several years, I worked in a laboratory of a scientist who studies female meiosis, so how egg cells are made, in Drosophila melanogaster, a.k.a. the common fruit fly. And the great thing about flies for genetics is they actually have a lot in common DNA-wise with humans. But they only have 4 chromosomes. 4 pairs of chromosomes.
Oh, wow.
So it's a lot easier to kind of keep track of where everything is. So they make wonderful creatures for studying genetics. And there's this great kind of rule about fly genetics. If you discover a new gene, you're generally allowed to name it anything you want. And meaning a new gene, like a gene that its function has been unknown and nobody kind of knew what it did. And so you can give it a name. And so this is kind of what you guys may have heard of a gene called Sonic Hedgehog. It's sort of the most popular example.
I'm unfamiliar with this gene. I'm not going to lie to you and say I have, because I haven't.
It's kind of the most well-known example of fruit fly biologists giving ridiculous names to genes that then turn out to have human homologs. And so the kind of naming convention is that if you find a gene that's a homolog of something else, meaning it's similar in either what it does or its sequence or something like that you give it the same name. And so that leads to genes in fruit flies like roadkill and Sonic Hedgehog, and the most popular example, ending up in humans. And so my boss likes to say, doctors will be like, some of my patients are extremely upset that I have to tell them, you're going to die because you have a mutation in your Sonic Hedgehog gene. And my boss's reply is always, maybe it's the you're going to die part that they find upsetting.
Not the name
Not
of the
the
gene.
Sonic Hedgehog part.
So that sounds like fun stuff with molecular biology.
I'd be
It
sitting there
is.
like, how many rings do I have to collect here? This has got to be a thing.
So how long have you been doing Damsels of Dorkington? Because I read, I did a lot of research on you guys before
Oh,
I
no.
sat down for this interview.
You found our criminal records.
I did,
Oh,
did. And there's a lot of side projects that you guys work on. Now, has it always been originally the three of you that started Damsels of Dorkington?
Yes, so originally it was Blythe and Jeff and I, and then we recruited a friend, Danielle, who currently works for Loot Crate. I think she's their social marketing director, social media director. And so our first Green Damsel. And so we started this in 2010.
So 6 years running now.
Yes. And so
They've been around the block, bro.
oh my God, we've gotten around so much. We have skid marks in very interesting places, is all I'm going to say on that. Well-trodden paths. And so yes, this is Gencon number 6 for us. As a group. But Blythe and I had been here 2 years before that with a different performing group, and then I had been here in 2002 and 2003, just kind of doing the booth babe thing. So I love Gen Con, and I have now loved it for more than a decade.
Dude, do you miss
in the butt?
Okay, I had a question and I just lost it.
One of the funnest things about them with the Green Damsel situation is that your promotional materials are literally set up to accommodate the shift now. So they just changed the faces. Of
We
the
did.
person out.
We actually literally had one of the artists that we worked with photoshopped the face of our new Green Damsel onto the old one and put tape around it, so it looked like we'd literally taped her face on.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Although now that Amanda's been with the group for 3 years, we're finally able to have some promotional material that actually has all of us with no face taping required. Thank God.
And then it's not just comedy. I mean, you've been launching a writing career as well, and you have a published novel. Isn't that correct?
Yes. So I, or rather, my evil alternate universe clone, Luna Teague, is the co-author of a book called "One Does Not Simply Walk into Tudor," the first novel in the Time Bangers series. It is exactly what it sounds like.
Bangers?
Yes. It's about two best friends from college. One of them is a physicist. One is a historian. They have a time machine, and they use it to go into the past and f*** famous people.
Boom.
That sounds like an interesting read. Now, this writing career, did this all spawn from your love for fan fiction?
Wait, no, we can't drop this. Is there in the future books, are you going to bushwhack Lincoln? Can this happen?
So actually, Lincoln's been done, and how? So we might, but honestly, in terms of Civil War figures, what really gets me lubed up is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, hero of Little Round Top. I would just so get down on that. Oh my God.
Now, how many books have you written in your authoring career? Because
just the one. I've been published for short stories and poetry and whatnot before. I like to write horror actually under my own name. I love it actually. If you guys have seen the Netflix show Stranger Things, I love that kind of 80s kid horror kind of thing. I really dig that, and so that's kind of what I like to write as well under my own name. So it alternates between lighthearted time travel sex comedy and terrifying Demogorgon kid horror.
Nice.
that sounds like interesting topics to read. Now, what is your demographic for the books that you author?
So for Time Bangers,
Yeah.
it's really weird, and it's a great question. So when my friend and I, so this part is certainly autobiographical. My best friend from college and I, when we decided to write these books together, we assumed that the market would be mostly women, because that's generally who writes and reads erotica.
Erotica, yeah.
And it's mostly women writing it, women buying it. And there's not much of a market for men, and so we did not decide to target a male audience. But then something very strange happened, and I would say that it's about 50-50, male and female.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So obviously we go over like gangbusters at conventions. She and I have started going to conventions together when we can, and separately when we can't. And it seems like a lot of guys are really into it, which makes me so happy. Because the driving force, it's not romantic erotica. It's straight up like, here are these two female friends back in college. Not only did they get around, they kept a scorebook. Where they would rate all of the various men and women, because one of the characters is a pansexual that they slept with, and so they've decided they're in their early to mid 30s, and they're feeling like their lives are kind of down in the gutter, and so they're trying to kind of recreate their glory days. So they're like, well, now that we have a time machine, let's start ranking historical figures.
Let's do
so
that.
You're telling me, I'm an economist, you're telling me that these characters could feasibly do time series graphs of
Yes,
sex pleasure
absolutely. We could get like a two-tailed ANOVA analysis of this shit.
data. I'll be right back. I'll be in my bunk.
And that's the point where Josh left the podcast and left me here with Rissi by myself. He'll be back momentarily. So
okay, I'm back. That really didn't take
wow,
long.
that was quick. See, this
Impressive.
is men are visual beasts and women are intellectual beasts, and it's amazing because the book that you've written is breaking that mold that men can only be aroused by what they see, and now you've tapped into the intellectual part of men that want to read about this in a book that it seems to be crass, but it's in the erotica vein, and men are now starting to enjoy this, and like you said, that's been an untapped demographic, and you've successfully done so.
I'm saying let's gender bend until the world inverts. Let's just do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and actually, so kind of spoiler alert, we do have some plans. I can't say too much, but to introduce multiple viewpoint characters, and some of them will be male at some point.
Ooh.
Yeah. We have a huge plot arc. So we have like this kind of list of here are all the famous people you'd like to fuck. And then we kind of have a planned sort of plot arc of what's going on outside the various historical trips. But so yes, we do intend to represent as many viewpoints as possible. But the thing that I love, like you said, kind of tapping not only this male demographic, but the plot in the book is not about finding love. The driving force is this kind of love between two female friends. And I've been told by so many men that they just absolutely love this book and are kind of touched by this portrayal of friendship. There's also a really hot lesbian sex scene in it that I wrote. So,
That's why guys are really loving this book now, and whatever it takes.
I don't think I can go to the bunk again yet. I don't.
All right, well, you sit there and relax then.
But no, back to the comedy real quick because personally, I really appreciate you coming out and doing this.
Oh, happy to do so anytime, guys.
Well, you guys, I've been a fan for a while, and you guys kind of inspired me to get out there and do something creative. The courage, right?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, because
so what are you doing?
The podcasting.
The podcast.
I'm trying to write myself. I haven't finished my
2 years ago, Josh wouldn't have been doing this.
Well, no.
Future Josh now would look at two-year-old Josh in
with
the
his
past.
time machine that he used to go and have sex with himself in the past.
And he'd be like, look at what you're doing now.
Well, first I'm going to bushwhack Lincoln, but then...
Bush, indeed. He was a hairy mother.
Right? It'd be like making out with the Brillo pad.
Tarantula salad.
Oh, stop. Oh.
D, get that beard over here. Get that beard right over here. But I was hoping you could take me back in time for a minute, because the thing I've always wanted to ask you is, you're sitting there in life, and you're like, I'm brilliant, and I'm stunning, and I'm going to become PhD magnificent, right? And all these things, right? But you're like, but I really need to go do crass adult comedy. So how did that happen? Take me to that moment, and how did you make that decision? When did that,
So my career as a performer, I did a little bit of, theater stuff in like grade school and junior high or whatever, but the kind of path that led me here began when I was 17. I started working at the Kansas City Renaissance Festival as a street performer. No, not a child prostitute street performer, as in one of the people that walks around the lanes like, "Good day, my lord. Canst I interest thou in the king's own mortar and pestle? Huzzah!"
That's the bumper for all bumpers.
I was about to say that's going to be the bumper for this episode.
Excellent.
Yes.
So it's I will say performing at a Renaissance festival in that capacity is an amazing school of comedy hard knocks, because you're literally told to just wander up to people and talk to them, and you have a character that you're supposed to play, but it's completely free range.
No pressure.
And so and so some people will just totally not be into you, and you have to deal with rejection, and then you have to learn how to start an interaction, to keep it going, and then to end it, because you can't obviously stay with and interact with the same group of people all day. And so it taught me so much about improv and what is actually funny and how to engage all different kinds of people. It also taught me that I really love dirty jokes. I've always been a weirdo. Like, I was born a weirdo. I came out staring. You know how, like, most babies don't have any control over their eyes? I was just like, meow. My mom thought I was an alien. She told me that later. And thanks for the therapy bills, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. Appreciate it.
But you were an optimist. It was like, so far, so good.
All right. And so after that, I eventually ended up getting recruited by a stage act. And I was always kind of the one like, hey guys, let's do more disgusting, horrible things. Like, I know we have to be family friendly some of the time, but wouldn't it be great if we could just stand around telling jokes about butt sex all day long? And so kind of through that, eventually through various Renaissance Festival stage acts, I eventually came to encounter Blythe and Jeff. And also Danielle, our first Green Damsel, worked at the Oklahoma Renaissance Festival. So she and Jeff knew each other. And so that's kind of how I sort of progressed over a decade. And ended up in the Damsels. So I've always enjoyed kind of filthy humor, and I realized that like I enjoy telling these kind of jokes and establishing these kind of improv scenarios or scripted shows with nerdy people. Those were always my favorite people to interact with at Renaissance festivals. And then in 2002, I came to Gencon for the first time.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is heaven. I would like to be here for all of the time. It's like when you get really great food and you're like, I want to have this in my mouth forever. Gencon, I'm like, I want to be in Gencon's mouth forever.
Now, I know you like the type of humor that you like. You've discussed it a little bit. You have a skit that you guys do called Comedy and Comics, where...
We do?
I think that's what it was called. Let me double check. Well, I'm pretty sure. Comic book comedy.
Oh, yes.
That's it. Sorry.
Okay.
Where the audience gets to dictate the scene. Have you guys ever been put in a situation that was just too uncomfortable or too crass or too adult that pushed you guys to your boundaries or your limits through the years that you've been doing this?
So the nice thing about the sort of scenario you're describing is we have the audience yell things out, and usually there's so many people suggesting things that we can pick and choose.
Oh, okay.
And so things that are uncomfortable, we can dismiss. But the great thing is because so many people are saying things, we don't make anybody feel bad about rejecting their choices. Also, it's one of those things that to have boundaries as a performer is important. Because we do get people like, take off your clothes, and we're like, no, you.
Yeah.
But
That's
you
what
can
I was talking about.
and you can usually say, as long as you do it in the right way, like you can literally tell people no off, but you do it in such a way that invites laughter and whatnot, and not necessarily directly at them. It kind of becomes, as long as there's enough energy in the crowd, it usually is okay. Maybe that sounds a little weird and new agey, but it's having an excited audience where everybody's kind of willing to laugh and to also push their limits as audience members is very important. And so we've been pretty lucky. Most of our really creepy scenarios happen off stage when we get extremely disturbing emails.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We have people just sliding into our DMs, as the kids would say.
Well, I mean, tying into that, what would you say is the hardest thing about being a damsel, the thing we wouldn't see from the outside?
So for me, I actually have a lot of performance anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually at the Renaissance Festival when I was first starting out, I used to get so nervous I would throw up.
It does not show.
Thank you.
I was about to
Thank
say,
you.
can't tell at all
No.
from this. But I guess you've been doing it for so long, you kind of have a mask that you wear that you can push that to the side.
Yes, and that's kind of important. So we have costumes or like sort of ritualized, like we wear our t-shirts and our jeans, and we have these kind of uniforms that we wear at cons, and it kind of helps provide a boundary. Like, this is me in performing mode as opposed to just me in regular person mode. Not that I am a regular person per se, but as close as I get. So yeah, that's actually Blythe and I were talking about this weekend. Like, that's the side that a lot of people don't see is us backstage when we're like, we're freaking out, man.
Oh, that's great. That's helpful to know because, I mean, part of what was intimidating is I watch you guys and I'm like, well, they've been at it for a while, but I'm like, they just look so in their element up there, just off the cuff. And it's kind of good to know that really never goes away.
Oh, never. And yeah, it's always internally screaming. At least it is for me. And we all have different things that we're weirdly nervous about. And for me, sometimes like Jeff has to kind of cattle prod me into like when we're doing like an improv game or something. So I have to be kind of herded, but once I get started, then it
flows pretty freely.
Yeah.
So one thing, I love coming to see you guys at Gen Con. And honestly, if you haven't come out to see one of their shows, it's the keystone of my con. You're really missing out.
He makes it it's one of the bullet points of his con every time he comes.
But the issue is, we all would love to see more content from you, in between the cons. So how did the how did the Patreon go? Are we moving? Are we going to be getting towards that?
We absolutely are. So we started this year. We started a Patreon. We'd done a Kickstarter in the past and been very successful. But as we were talking about this earlier, the problem with the Kickstarter is it's feast and famine, and so you get this gigantic drop of cash, which is fantastic to do a lot of stuff with, but then it's just gone.
Yeah.
And dealing with the rewards and whatnot can take up a lot of time. And so with the Patreon, though, we just get a kind of lower but nice, steady flow of money.
Income.
Yeah, and I would also say it encourages more of a deeper relationship with our patrons because it's like every month. And so we're in more contact with them. We actually had a room party for our Patreons this year at Gencon, and would probably love to go to it again next year. So
hear that, guys? You need to join the Damsels of Dorkington Patreon ASAP.
Just $1. That's all it takes to become one of our patrons, and you can totally come to our room party and hang out with us. We love hanging out with our people.
$1, and then you're walking up to their room like multipass.
Let me tell you,
Lulu Dallas
Rissi
multipass.
is one of the women that you want to hang out with in a room party.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Oh gosh.
Oh, gosh. So it's been great. And that is some of our goals. So now all of us live in 4 different states.
Oh, wow.
I'm at the University of Chicago. Amanda is going for her PhD in Kansas City, Missouri. Jeff is in Oklahoma City. And Blythe is in LA.
Oh, my.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of what we do, all of our rehearsals are on Skype. But the great thing about the Patreon is now we have a podcast that we were able to start thanks to the Patreon. It's called the Dork Pridecast, and we can do that via Skype. We do Google Hangouts with our patrons at various reward levels, and that can all be done on Skype. But the goal is we have various tiers, and one of them is definitely start recording and releasing songs, start recording and releasing music videos for those songs, because obviously one of the things that kind of launched us to nerd celebrity status, as you said, was our parody of Katy Perry's I Kissed
That's
a
how I
Girl, which
found
was
you.
I Kissed
Yeah.
a Nerd. That's how a lot of people found us, and that makes me so happy because that's I think one of the best parodies I've ever written. And we had so much fun shooting that music video, and we shot it at a convention. And so we would really like to do that again. It just takes so much time and effort and money.
And money, yeah.
Because the editing on that video is amazing. We were able to do it's basically a shot by shot kind of riff on the original music video, and that does not just happen overnight. So not only do we like to do nerdy fun things, but we want them to be done really well.
So the Patreon has helped you guys with a regular flow of income.
Yes.
Now, I read on the website now, but I don't think the website's been updated since 2015, that you guys were breaking even with the income that you guys were making.
Yes.
And you guys were all doing this gratis. You guys weren't paying yourselves due, but you did for the love of the audience and the crowd and
the butt jokes.
and the butt jokes. And so what, other than the love and the energy that you get from the audience when you're going out doing these live events, what drives you guys to get out of bed to be like, we need this convention we have to go to, but it's like halfway across the states. We got to go to PAX East or PAX West or Gen Con. When you guys are all over the country, what makes you get up every day to do that and want to keep doing that when you're doing it for free?
That's a great question. We're all performers. We've all done theater in some fashion. Jeff and I are Renfest people. That's kind of how we got started. But Jeff has done other theater. Blythe is a huge musical theater buff. She has the voice of an angel. I highly recommend if you ever get the chance to listen to her sing. She's incredible. Amanda also has done musical theater. So for one thing, we love performing. We love performing together, and we love performing for nerds. That's the great thing about places like Gen Con is these are our people. I know I can make the most obscure, ridiculous jokes and references, and people will love it. And so that's really kind of what drives us is we get to not only perform, we can sing and dance and be outrageous, but do it for an audience that truly appreciates us, and to have a huge measure of creative control that you don't get with things like community theater or things like that, where usually, unless you're directing or funding a production, you're not the one calling the shots.
Yeah.
But we get to do basically whatever we want. It's actually, I feel incredibly privileged to be able to do this.
See, and that's what would get me up out of bed every morning is I get to go to work and doing something that I love, that I have 100% creative control over.
The creative control is a big deal to me, actually. In previous groups, I've had issues with that. And so, pardon me.
You're all right.
Just getting to write material and that's like we're the ones who have control over this sort of stuff, and we all contribute. So yeah, that's for me the driving force.
But so as a sort of call to action out there, people, if you're listening to this and you like their stuff, you got to remember, if we want content that serves the nerd universe, we have to go out there and put the money there and make it happen. You know, this stuff just doesn't come out of thin air. So that having been said, do you have anything else you'd like to plug where they can find you?
Absolutely. So you can find us all on social media. We're on Facebook, obviously, the Damsels of Dorkington. We have a Twitter feed at Dorkington. All four of us have individual Twitters that you can find if you go to our the group Twitter feed. And then I would say most importantly, our patreon.com/Damsels of Dorkington is where our Patreon is, and you can see all the awesome stuff that you get if you're a patron, all the awesome ways in which you can come hang out with us online and see us be absolute insane weirdos. Actually, thanks to Gencon, we recently reached another tier on Patreon.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
nice.
and so now
Stretch goals.
And now we get to do the drunk pride cast instead of where we're just going to get wasted and do one of our podcasts.
That sounds like something I really want to listen to. Drunk Pridecast. That's going to be fantastic.
Oh yeah. So not only I like to think we're a lot of fun to hang out with, but especially so when we are bombed out of our gourds.
Do you guys have a website online where
Yes.
they can find you as well that will link to all of that?
Absolutely. So yeah, we are. You can either go damselsofdorkington.com or dorkpride.com.
I saw that, dorkpride.com. So damselsofdorkington.com, dorkpride.com. All of their social media links are there as well. Is your Patreon linked there as well?
I think so. So I should tell you guys, I'm not the one who handles any
Right,
logistics.
right. You're the
expressly-
talent.
Yeah. Well, I'm a content creator, and my job is to be crazy on stage and to write things for us. I have been expressly forbidden to try and
gotcha.
touch anything that smacks of logistics or planning. And it's good to know your place. I found on those rare occasions, I'm like, I can help with this. You guys, no, Rissi, no.
All right.
All
Well,
for the best.
Do you have any other questions for Rissi before we wrap up and free her from...
Not at all, except to say, as a fan of your work, thank you very much for coming out.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Rissi. Thank you, listeners of GamingWithScott.com. And as always, we will talk to you another time. Bye.
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 And that'll do us tonight for Gaming with Scott presents Behind the Masks, a Southgate media production. You can always send us an email at gamingwscott@gmail.com or catch us on Twitter. Josh Elliott is at Asmodee369. Dan is at Malkware. Josh Jackson is at ActionJack853. And Rico is at R1CO. Or me, Scott T, at GamingWScott. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/GamingWScott. Remember, superfans, the more you share, the more we make. If you love what we do, share it with your friends. If you don't love what we do, please share it with us. This show will only be made better by listener participation. Send us email or comments on Facebook, or send us a tweet of the things you would like us to discuss. We promise we will get your comments and topics on the air, and as always, you'll hear from us real soon.